how a choreographer originates ballets, Balanchine answered that when he begins with a story idea, he often likes to have music specially written for him. But when he begins with a piece of music, he writes, I familiarize myself with the score thoroughly and try to understand what the composer had in mind musically when writing it. Speaking specifically about Concerto Barocco, Balanchine continues, Bach had no idea of composing music for ballet when he wrote his Concerto in D minor for 2 violins, but in listening to this music, it is possible to conceive of movement that harmonizes with the score. In this video, I'm going to show you one moment in the third movement of Concerto Barocco in which the dancer's steps harmonize with Bach's musical score, not by imitating the music that is heard, but by adding something different to it. Let's watch a clip of that moment. This is from a 1966 studio performance with Suzanne Farrell and Marnie Morris in the lead roles. This is an iconic passage in this ballet. The dancers create surprising patterns against each other and against the music. To me, the choreography brings a sense of fun into a moment in which the music is quite intense. The dance accents are unexpected. They seem to be unrelated to the music's accents. What I want to show you is how these dance accents harmonize with the music to make Bach look jazzy. Let me show you what I mean. Balanchine is working with music that Bach wrote in 3/4 meter. It's counted like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 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 represent 6/8 notes to the measure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Against that, Balanchine has his dancers perform in unison a 4-count step, and then he breaks off 1/2 of the group to start a 3-count step. Let's watch it again, this time with the dance counts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. Notice that the dancer's movements create a visual accent on the last count like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. In the 4-count step, count 4 is marked by the tendu à la seconde and the lowering of one arm. Count 1 is also significant because it's the beginning of the pattern, but its accent is not as strong, in my opinion, as that of count 4, so counts 4 and 1 receive some emphasis, but 4 is a bit stronger. Here I have represented the dancer's steps in what I call choreomusical notation. The 2 stems or lines coming down from a note head represent 2 weight-bearing legs. So the hops on point on 2 legs are notated like this. The tendu à la seconde is on the left leg at first, and then on the right, and then again on the left. Comparing the dance to the music, you can see that the steady 8th note rhythm of the hop, hop, hop tendu pattern is synchronized with the 8th note rhythm played by the 2 violins. You can also see the pattern of high, 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 low going from hops on point to tendu à la seconde and demi-plie. And that pattern is performed 3 times in 2 measures of music, and then again 3 times in the next 2 measures of music. These 4-count units are not aligned with the music's 3/4 meter, and you can see how they cross over the music's bar line at points. Concerto Barocco is known for its jazzy style, and there are many factors that contribute to that. Of course, there are aspects of the dance movements themselves, but there are also rhythmic factors. The way that Balanchine chose to accent these hops on point is one of these. Let me explain what I mean. Remember that the 4-count steps accent count 4 the strongest. Therefore, in relation to the musical counts, it's like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. In the next 2 measures, the pattern repeats. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Notice that the accents all fall on the ands of beats, the weaker half of each beat, also known as the backbeat. Placing accents on weaker beats or weaker parts of beats is called syncopation. When the 3-count steps come in, the accents of the two groups of dancers do not align with each other, except once. In each measure, the 3-count step accents count 2 and the and of 3. And when you put that together with the accents from the 4-count step, you can see how the dance accents only backbeats and beat 2, which is a weak beat in 3/4 meter. Furthermore, the dance avoids accenting the downbeat, the strongest beat in each measure. That is, until the music and dance come together with a strong lunge at the musical cadence, marking the end of this passage. But until that point, the musical pulse that is most consistently accented by the tendus à la seconde is the 8th pulse just before the downbeat. Now, why is that significant? Well, one of the reasons jazz music might sound to us like it's full of energy is that it uses anacoustic rhythms on multiple levels. In other words, musical notes are played earlier than expected, and even if the tempo is unchanged, when things come to us earlier than expected, we perceive an increase in speed. This is how swung 8th notes work. Instead of ta 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 ta, we can add an anacrusis, ta 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 ta, and smoothing over that second articulation we can get ta 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 ta. So compare the two. Ta 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 ta. The second one probably sounds a bit more energetic, and it's because it uses an anacroustic rhythm. Listen to this excerpt from a 1937 recording of Eddie South, Stefan Grappelli, and Django Reinhardt performing a swung version of the first movement of the same concerto by Bach. And notice how often the violinist plays notes earlier than expected. So this was recorded in 1937, which was just 4 years before the premiere of Concerto Barocco in 1941. These kinds of performances were called swinging the classics, and in a way, Balanchine was swinging Bach's music too, through the way he had the dance interact with the music. Balanchine's steps harmonize with the music in a jazzy way. I've described how the steps avoid accenting the music's downbeat and more consistently accent instead the 8th pulse just before the downbeat. Keeping these things in mind, let's watch the hops on point one more time. So far, I've been talking about how the 4 and 3 count steps relate to each other and to the music to which they are performed. But I believe that Balanchine's choreography not only harmonizes with Bach's score, but also derives from it. And in this case, it seems to derive in part from a pattern in the music that comes right before the hops on point begin. It's a pattern that Bach uses many times throughout this movement, just not at this particular moment during the hops. Let's look at the musical score at the point just before those hops. This passage has a 4-count pattern in the violin and viola parts. Let's listen to it. 4 and 1, 2, 3, 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 4. It's a pattern that emphasizes the 4 and the 1. 4 and 1, rest, rest. 4 and 1, rest, rest. Just like Balanchine's hops accent both 4 and 1. The 4-count pattern does not align with the prevailing 3/4 meter, which has 6 counts per measure. The accents in the musical counts keep shifting, like this. 1 and 2, and a 3 and 1, and a 2 and 3, and a 1, and so forth. This is very similar to the way we saw the 4-count dance unit relate to the music. Bach's 4 and 1 pattern occurs repeatedly throughout this movement, including at the very beginning. It contributes to the overall energy of the movement in part because of the way it syncopates against the meter. Although the violin and viola parts are somewhat tucked away in the middle of the texture, Balanchine would have noticed this pattern while studying the score. So Bach's fours occur 6 times over 4 measures of 6 counts each. When the pattern ends in Bach's score, Balanchine immediately echoes it with his 4-count hops performed 6 times. The accents of the 4-count hops appear at odds with the music that is heard simultaneously. However, they are a choreographic echo of a musical pattern heard just before the dancers perform them. Research in multimedia perception has shown that visual patterns can become encoded orally in the brain. In other words, viewers will hear visual rhythms. Therefore, the visual patterns of Balanchine's choreography may resonate with viewers' oral experiences of Bach's music. Somewhere in the conscious or subconscious mind, then, viewers might notice a connection between the choreographic 4-count pattern and the musical one, making the choreography seem musical, even though the accents do not fit or match those of the music being heard at the time. The musical connection here may seem a bit obscure, but when Balanchine wanted to make a musical connection more obvious, he did. At a slower speed and with the score, watch how the high and low positions of the dancer match the high and low notes of the violin solo in this excerpt from the first movement. In addition, watch how the dance follows the pattern of repetition in the music. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, jump, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, jump, down, up, down, switch, down, up, down, switch, down, up, down, switch, certain move, turn. In contrast, the connection to the music is not as easy to notice in the hops on point sequence. The related choreographic and musical patterns are not presented simultaneously, and the musical pattern itself is harder to notice orally. The dance, therefore, seems to point to this significant but somewhat hidden musical pattern by bringing it to the viewer's attention. In this way, Balanchine's choreography may influence viewers to hear Bach in a new way. I'll show this passage again, counting along first with Bach's fours and then with its choreographic echo in Balanchine's fours. 4 and 1, 2, 3, 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 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope that you have found this close look at the music and choreography of one brief passage useful in appreciating Balanchine's craft. I want to leave you with one final thought. Balanchine studied his musical scores carefully before choreographing to them. He was concerned with how the steps he gave would interact with the music he chose. Jacques d'Amboise recalls in his memoir, Balanchine used to suck the thumb of delight looking at the choreography, exclaiming to me, "See the rhythms of the steps of the corps de ballet, syncopated, and the patterns they move in are playing with the harmonies in the music. It's so interesting." I nodded, smiled, and acted as if I knew what he was talking about.